Congressman Mark Veasey of Fort Worth, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
As you know, this week, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is going to be considering, they're holding a hearing on SB 4. How do you think this is going to all shake out?
You never know with the Fifth Circuit. Obviously, as someone that is a Democrat, I haven't been happy with a lot of the rulings that have come out of the Fifth Circuit, but I think that this particular law clearly violates a lot of the Constitution, and so I hope that it's found to be unconstitutional. Look, we need to be focused on common sense immigration reform, and we need our state to be focused on that. How amazing would it be, and how many jobs could we actually create in this state if we had a governor and a state legislature that actually focused on things like keeping costs down instead of making costs rise? Because under SB 4, this is going to actually, I think, end up winding up making costs higher for everyday Texans because it's focused on targeting people instead of actually, coming up with common sense solutions on how we can work together on things like immigration reform. And even though the state legislature, that's not their job, immigration reform, since they have decided to wade into this issue, it would be better if they would actually pass a resolution saying we want common sense immigration reform now. That's what Governor Abbott should be doing.
When you say targeting people, I asked Governor Abbott about that recently, and he said we're not targeting any groups in specific. It's anybody who comes across the border, whether they're from China, they're from Russia, they're from the Middle East, they're from Mexico or South America. So what do you say to that?
I mean, there's a lot of problems with that. Obviously, there are a lot of people that are American citizens that work on the Mexican side of the border. There are people that are Mexican citizens that come to the U.S. daily that work here legally.
Well, wouldn't they come through the legal ports of entry?
They would absolutely come through the legal ports of entry. But is Abbott's order going to stop at asking people these questions along the border? I don't think that they are. I think that if you look at how this bill is written, it can be anywhere. It can be in Houston. It can be in Dallas, Fort Worth, or it can be in Paris, Texas, where local authorities can stop and harass people based on what they look like to see if they're U.S. citizens. And I think that is terrible. And I'll never forget when I was in the state legislature, and there was a woman that came to testify on behalf of a bill, and it was probably something similar to SB 4. I can't remember the exact title of the bill, but I asked her because she said that she would call the police on her neighbors when they hired people, in her words, that were illegal. And I said, well, ma'am, how can you tell when people aren't here legally in this country? And she said, oh, I can just look at them and tell. And we all sort of laughed, Democrats and Republicans, when she said that. But now that sort of thinking seems to be a reality, and I think it's scary.
What is your position on the bipartisan bill that was developed in the Senate on border security that ultimately was rejected? Is that something you would support it if it ever got to the House?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bipartisan bill that was rejected by Speaker Mike Johnson and rejected by Donald Trump, that was largely led by a senator from Oklahoma, one of the reddest states in this country, a senator that has a A+ on his Club for Growth report card. If you look at the other conservative organizations, this guy scores very high on conservative organizational report cards. And instead of accepting that bill so we could do something about a lot of the disorder that we see at the border, Trump said, let's kill the bill, because if we kill the bill, it will hurt Biden. And I think that is that sort of spirit that people are sick of when they think of Washington, D.C. When you think of a former president and a current Speaker of the House that says we're going to kill something that will actually help fix the disorder at the border because it may help the current guy in office. And so we just want to keep the chaos going so we can hurt Biden. I think that that's the sort of thing that just makes people upset. I think people are sick of it. I think that people have had enough of it. And I'm going to keep talking about it, and I hope the president keeps talking about it until November.
What's your assessment of what's actually going on at the border right now?
Oh, obviously, my assessment of what's going on at the border right now is that we have states that are very corrupt, where there's extreme poverty, where there's extreme violence, and people are trying to do everything that they can to escape that situation. And so they want to come to this country. Do I think that that should be the way that they do it, is how they're doing it now? I absolutely don't think that. Under no circumstances do I think that. Do I think that Congress should come together and address those issues that are happening in some of those states to slow down the flow of immigration? I think that we need to do that. Something similar to what President Clinton did when he was president with Plan Colombia. And now you have many Texans and other Americans that go to Colombia on an annual basis to do things like vacation, because we made an investment there to help clean up corruption and help make that country safer for the citizens that live there, make it more prosperous for the citizens that live there. And so I would start there. The second thing that I would do is, again, push for a comprehensive immigration reform bill that fixes a lot of the issues that we have in our current immigration system that are obviously broken and not working well, and address those. Because to me, if you do those two things, that will stop a huge flow of people that are trying to make their way to just safety and some prosperity for their family.
You spoke at a news conference where you and others urged President Biden to increase the number of work authorizations.
Yes.
Why is this important to you, and what do you think that would do?
Well, because of laws like SB4, Greg Abbott is actually making inflation worse for everyday Texans, making things like gas prices higher.
How's that?
Because, again, when you put pressure on those workers that have come here to work and help the Texas economy, that work in areas like oil and gas, that work in areas like agriculture, that work in areas like home building and construction, and you lessen the amount of workers and you lessen the amount of skilled workers in those areas, that means that Texans pay more for things like gasoline, they pay more for food, they pay more for housing, because now we have less skilled workers, because you're passing laws like SB4 that's saying, hey, skilled workers, we don't want you here anymore. And so that drives up costs for everyone. And so to me, we have to move away from that model and move away from models that will actually help everyday Texans.
I wanted to ask you just on this point, the work authorizations would have increased under this bipartisan bill,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so now, because that's not going anywhere, are you calling on the president to just do an executive order on this?
I think that the president should look at whatever tools that he has available, and because I think that it not only would help Texas, but that it would help all Americans. And what I want people to remember is that we actually have more jobs in Texas than we have people. And even if everybody in Texas that was a U.S. citizen could work, and there are a lot of people that can't work in this state because they have some sort of a mental disability or some sort of physical disability that doesn't allow them to be able to do that. But let's just say that everyone here that was 100% able-bodied and mentally well, and they could work, even if all of them could work, we would still have a shortage. And when you don't do things to address those shortages, all of us pay the price. And that is one of the reasons why inflation is where it's at today. It's because of the Republicans' refusal to actually address immigration reform.
I wanted to ask you about some other issues as far as Ukraine and support for Ukraine. Do you think there is going to be a bill in the House that will address that and enable U.S. support somehow, whether it's financial or loans has been mentioned very recently, weapons, etc., get to Ukraine?
Look, if you look at what the Ukrainian military is doing right now, what the citizens of that country are doing together to band against Russia's unlawful invasion of that country, I think that is absolutely amazing. They're using the very bare minimums, makeshift drones, all other sorts of devices to help push back this unlawful Russian invasion. And they're actually doing pretty well. Putin is very upset. He is frustrated with his lack of advancement there in that country. And I think that any money that we can send Ukraine, that's a small price to pay in order to keep Europe and keep democracies across the world flourishing, and to send a message to other democracies that we're serious when it comes to protecting democracies. And I'll tell you this, I do think that there are enough votes to pass this, but again, because of the reckless radical Republicans that now seem to control the Speaker of the House, that seem to control our immigration policies in this country, because they don't want him to pass a bill to help the Ukrainians, then we don't have a bill on the floor. And so that's the only reason why we don't have one on the floor. It's because he cannot get the bill through because of the nuts that he has allowed to control his party.
Two other questions, and I appreciate your time, and that is on Israel.
Yes.
There have been increasing number of calls for an immediate ceasefire. Do you support that?
I do not support an immediate ceasefire. No, I do not at all. I think that it would be a mistake to support an immediate ceasefire, and you would be handing Hamas a victory. And by handing Hamas a victory, you would be encouraging radicalism around the world by doing that. And that is not something that anyone wants. People need to be able to travel to the Middle East and travel to other parts of this country by plane, or other countries around the world by plane, be able to move around those countries without fear of violence or other terroristic activities. And by just saying that we're just going to do a ceasefire while hostages are still there, would be sending the absolute wrong message. And no matter how much people think they want that, the aftermath of that would be something that we would all pay for, and it would make the world a much more dangerous place. And so do I think that what's happening in Gaza right now is awful? I absolutely do. No food, lack of water, people being killed. Absolutely. War is terrible. And the act of war that happened on October the 7th that has led to everything that is happening today has been bad for both Israel and the Palestinians. And we also, under no circumstances, can let the radicalized world think that they can do things that are violent and then go and hide amongst people in cities and in neighborhoods and things like that, and that they can just get away with it, because again, you will make the world a much, much more dangerous place. And we should be condemning Hamas for hiding their military equipment in hospitals and in neighborhoods where people live and where people pray and where children are, because it's a strategic value to them. That is absolutely against rules of war, and those are war crimes, and they should be held accountable for them.
And last question, and that is just, what is your assessment of what's going on in the House among Republicans?
Yeah, I think that what's happening right now amongst Republicans right now is it's sad. It really is, because it's led to this Congress that we're in right now being the most ineffective Congress, I believe, since 1931, since Herbert Hoover was president. And the Speaker can't get anything done because, again, he's allowed the most radical voices within the Republican Party to control the Rules Committee. So we can't even bring bills onto the House floor anymore without bringing them up through a process known as suspension, because he can't even get it through there, because he's allowed them to control this process. If they disagree with him on anything, one of them can call for a motion to vacate and stop all business in the House. The Republican Party is out of control. It's been this way for a long time. Trump was just actually someone that poured gasoline on a fire that had been burning for a long, long time, and now it's out of control. And I pray for Texas, I pray for our democracy, and I pray for our Constitution in this country that it stops soon, because I think that where we're headed, I don't think that anyone knows. But I do think that it's scary, and I think that it makes for times to be more uncertain than they ever have been before. And I hope that people remember that, because I think that it's serious. And look, if you like what happened on January the 6th, back in 2021, then you can continue on with this nonsense. But I think that the American people are going to send a message this November that they're sick and tired of it. And if not, I just pray for our country.
Congressman Mark Veasey of Fort Worth, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.